How are you guys doing? Good. I'm kind of recovered from camp. Kinda. It was great. Can I just tell you, like, this generation is, man, I'm just blown away. To hear a generation, teenagers crying out to God, and then sitting in silence for over 5 minutes, over 300 campers, not a single sound, not a single movement, sitting in silence because they are desperately wanting to hear God's voice. Silence. I have never experienced anything like that before. And it's given me hope. Not for our future, hope for the now. You know, every great movement that has ever taken place has started with young people. In fact, any great story that we think about in the Bible, guess what? It was kids and teenagers. David and Goliath. John the Beloved, who the only disciple that stayed at the foot of the cross, was a teenager. So you want your faith to grow. I encourage you, get involved. VBS, kids ministry, youth ministry, they will challenge you. So, all right, enough. Here we go. You ready? I'm ready for this message. We're going to jump into, Jason, it's okay. All right. We're going to jump back into our sermon series, the questions that Jesus asked. And today is, what do you see? Everybody say, what do you see? What do you see? So let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like God was working in your life, but not as fast as you wanted him to? Now you can laugh, Jason. It's all of us, right? It's like, come on, God. You know, you prayed, you trusted, you took steps of faith, but instead of instant transformation, you found yourself in a process, still healing, still growing, still becoming. And if we're honest, most of us love miracles, but we struggle with process. We love sudden breakthroughs, but we struggle with gradual transformation. We want God to do in one moment what he intends to do over a season. And that's why this story and what we're going to talk about this morning is so powerful, because this is the only miracle in the Gospels where Jesus heals someone in stages. Which tells me something. If Jesus could have healed instantly but chose a process, then maybe there are moments when God is doing something deeper than immediate results. So if we look in our passage this morning in Mark chapter 8, verses 22 through 25, it says this: when they arrived at Bethsaida, some people brought a blind man to Jesus, and they begged him to touch the man and heal him. Jesus took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. Then spitting on the man's eyes, he laid his hands on him and asked, "Can you see anything now?" Then the man looked around. "Yes," he said, "I see people, but I can't see them very clearly. They look like trees walking around." Then Jesus placed his hands on the man's eyes again, and his eyes were opened. His sight was completely restored, and he could see everything clearly. A blind man is brought to Jesus, and immediately Jesus does something unexpectedly. If you're taking notes, you could write this down. Sometimes God leads us away before he heals us. You see, in Mark 8:23, it says he took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. You see, before Jesus healed him, Jesus moved him. That's why it's important. It's not that there's something special about camps or conferences, but what it is God allows us to take away our everyday schedule and move us to a location so that transformation could take place. But before transformation came, separation came. Before vision came, the man had to leave the environment he was standing in. Why didn't Jesus heal him in the village? Why lead him away first? Because sometimes God has to separate us from environments that reinforce our blindness. Psalms 1 and 2, it says this: blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked. Sometimes God wants us to change your environment, change your influences, change your routines, change your relationships before he changes your circumstances. There's a reason why in the recovery life there are recovery centers, because you have to remove yourself from an environment to receive restoration and healing. Some breakthroughs don't begin with a miracle, they begin with a move. Jesus leads him away, then he touches him. But something unusual happens. Taking notes, you can write this down. Partial vision is better than no vision. Partial vision is better than no vision. Jesus asks, do you see anything? Do you see anything? Then the man replies, I see people. They look like trees walking around. The miracle has started. In that moment, the miracle has started, but it isn't complete. He can see, just not clearly. You see, progress is happening even when perfection isn't present. Let me say that again. Progress is happening even when perfection isn't present. Some of you are frustrated because you aren't where you want to be, but you are not where you used to be. You're growing, healing, learning, changing, and because it isn't complete, you think God isn't working. Let me just take some weight off of you. You're not going to be perfect, ever. You should always be working. There should always be something that's growing and something that's moving and somewhere that you're still learning. And if you think that you've arrived, reach out to me. We need to talk. But because you're not perfect, you think, man, God's not moving. No. God's opening your eyes to see things differently. We talked about this at First Things First on Thursday night, where sometimes we see obedience and we think, oh, I need to do this, but yet we continue to move forward. And we hindsight, we look back, we go, man, I should have stopped. I should have helped this person. I should have done this. Can I just tell you, that season that you're in, you're seeing trees. It's not that healing hasn't taken place or that your faith is weak. You're seeing trees. There's a process. There's layers being peeled back, and you're starting to recognize, oh, that was God speaking to me. Sometimes we think, I wasn't obedient. No, God is speaking to you, and you're trying to get familiar to his voice. Zechariah 4:10 says, do not despise these small beginnings, right? Who dares despise the day of small things, since the 7 eyes of the Lord that range throughout the earth will rejoice when they see the chosen capstone in the hand as the rebel. How many of us have prayed, God, why am I not further along? Yet God is saying, look how far I've already brought you. Don't let incomplete progress blind you to God's ongoing work. Then Jesus does something no one expected. If you're taking notes, you could write this down. God often works in stages. Oh, that's the part that we don't like. But he often works in stages. Mark 8:25 says, once more Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Once more. Could Jesus do it the first time? Absolutely. Did he? Maybe. Maybe it was the man. Maybe it was something the man was dealing with. But God is working in stages. Jesus touched him once. Then Jesus touched him again. And this raises a question. Did Jesus lack power the first time? No, of course not. Then why 2 touches? Because Jesus wasn't just healing his eyes. He was teaching his disciples, and he is teaching us. Can you imagine? All this time, I've gone through all these healings in the Gospels, and this stood out to me for the first time, that this was the only healing that took stages. It wasn't instantaneous. And I'm wondering if maybe it was for this reason that we go, I can relate to this blind man. I can relate to him. Because there's things in my life that God works in stages. You see, here's some key truth is some things happen instantly, but some things happen gradually. Philippians 1:6 says, he who began a good work in you will carry it on. Being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ, until Christ Jesus. You see, salvation happens instantly. Romans 10:9, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Salvation instantly. You don't have to work at it. Oh, but man, when you start understanding the love of Jesus, man, you want to work for him. That becomes worship. If salvation happens instantly, sanctification happens over time. Forgiveness is immediate. From Jesus forgiving you is immediate. Spiritual maturity is a process. God is not only interested in your destination, he is shaping you in your journey. And this leads us to one of the most important lessons in this story, which is don't quit between touches. Don't quit between touches. Imagine if the man had walked away after the first touch. He would have missed the complete healing. Jesus asked the question, what do you see? And he goes, man, I see people, but they look like trees. Thanks, Jesus. And Jesus said, whoa, wait a minute, right? The man stayed. He stayed. And sometimes we think, oh, that was good enough. And we think that is enough. We reached the milestone because it's something new, something fresh. It feels good. And we think that that's it. But God has so much more for us. Don't quit between the touches. Many people quit in the middle. They quit praying, believing, trusting, serving, and growing because they don't see immediate results or the results that they want. Galatians 6:9 says this, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Some of you are living between the first touch and the second touch. You know God has started something, but you don't see the full picture yet. You're not completely healed. You're not completely free, not completely where you want to be. Let me just say this and speak this into your life. Don't walk away from the process just because you're not at the finish line yet. Some of the greatest miracles happened because people stayed faithful, stayed obedient, stayed surrendered, stayed available, and eventually the second touch comes. Our last point today is this: clear vision changes everything. Clear vision changes everything. Mark 8:25 says this: his sight was restored and he saw everything clearly. You see, notice what Jesus ultimately gave him. It wasn't just sight, it was clarity. The physical was sight, but yet there was the heart and the mind. It was clarity in what was taking place. What if the greatest miracle isn't changing what you're looking at, but changing how you see it? Jesus gives us new vision. He changes how we see things. He changes how we see ourselves. He changes how we see others. He changes how we see our trials, our purpose, the future. You see, Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. When Jesus changes your vision, problems become opportunities. Obstacles become stepping stones. Fear becomes faith. Defeat becomes hope. Church, clear vision doesn't change your circumstances first. It changes your perspective. So let me ask you the question Jesus asked. Do you see anything? Do you see anything? Some of you are seeing something, just not clearly yet. You see God moving, but not fully. You see growth, but not completely. You see healing, but not entirely. And you're tempted to believe God isn't working. Don't confuse incompletion with abandoned. Don't confuse process with failure. Don't confuse delay with denial. Because the same Jesus who touched the blind man once touched him again. Maybe you're living between touches because where you were and where God is taking you. Between the prayer and the answer. Between the promise and the fulfillment. And if that's you today, I want you to hear this. God isn't finished. Let me say it again. God isn't finished. The story isn't over. The process isn't complete. And the God who started the work is still working today. If you're in a season where God is teaching you to trust him in the process, if you're between the first touch and the second touch, if you're waiting for clarity, I want to do something this morning. In just a moment, I'm going to invite you to come forward. And we're going to spend some time in prayer. We're going to spend some time in surrendering to the Lord. There's something about surrender and saying, you know what, God, I'm not going to give up. I may see things a little bit different. Maybe you're still blind and God is removing you out of your environment, and maybe that's why you're here this morning. Maybe you've been touched and you see things just not clearly, and you're in that in-between and you're saying, you know what, God, I need to see clarity. I need to see things different. Or maybe you're at the very end and you're like, man, I see things clearly now. And here's the thing, what I've noticed, and I'm going to share just a moment what God showed me this last week at youth camp for me. I've noticed that in-between touches is a process. And when you think that you've received that complete touch, God reminds you of something else. And you're like, oh my word. It was at youth camp. There's a song that we sang that he's always on time. He's always on time. And as we were singing that during a worship, God took me back to a situation. It was one of the loneliest meetings I've ever been in. It was a room full of men. And I felt like I was all alone in that situation. And it was during the song and the lyrics in this song, always on time, through the fire, you were right by my side, is part of that song. And God took me back. I've told you I'm a visual thinker. And in an instant, took me back into that room. And in that moment of that song, I saw Jesus right by my side, even in the moment when I didn't see him there or feel him there. And God just reminded me once again that even in the hardest times, even if I didn't see him, I didn't feel him, I knew I was obedient to him, I knew I was doing what I was supposed to do, but it was the loneliest time. And God once again said, I'm right by your side. I'm always on time. Always on time. And maybe in that in-between touches from Jesus, sometimes it's those loneliest. Like you see, okay, God touched me here. He did this, but now I'm in this weird season. It's like, okay, God, where are you? I'm not seeing things clearly. And sometimes we just have to remember that God has his perfect timing in the process. And he's always on time. If you will stand with me this morning. And if you're joining us on live stream, I'm going to say thank you for joining us, and we're going to end live stream right